Hello, everyone. Welcome to Relate to You to another beautiful episode. And today is going to be rather fun. And again, I think we've been doing very lighthearted ones. So it's good to take a breather. Today we're going to talk about conspiracies, UFOs, inventions that, we wish existed, but maybe we still don't have the smart people, the geniuses that will come up with that. So, Kiss, as you were a child growing up, did you ever thought of something? Oh, it'd be nice to have like an invention or anything, a superpower or something.
Yes, many, but one right now that just came to mind. Have you ever seen the Spy Kids movie?
With Antonio Banderas?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
You know that scene where they put something in that microwave and it becomes a Big Mac?
Oh, yeah.
I wish that existed. That is something I've seen in a film that I'm like, man, I wish that we had something that it's like, oh my God, I see it on TV or I see it at a restaurant and I have a steak here.
Yeah.
That would be something that I'm just maybe because I'm a foodie, I would really like to have that, exactly how you see it on your plate.
On your plate.
Yeah. Most minimal. You put some powder or some whatever. Because I don't remember if it's a powder or something, or if they do something and they put it on a plate and then it snaps and it becomes what it is.
Yeah, I was just reminded because there's actually a couple, I don't know if you've ever seen Dragon Ball, but in Dragon Ball anime, they do that. They have capsules where you put them in the microwave or whatever, and then you put whatever, and it comes out as a whole meal or a whole chicken or whatever. And then there's another movie. Again, I don't know if you've seen it. It's called The Fifth Element. The Fifth Element.
Nope, tampoco.
No, Bruce Willis, please. And she is sort of like a celestial being, whatever. She's here to rescue the Earth, but it's years
down the line.
down the future, And there's a scene where she's trying to assimilate to the Earth because she's relatively new, she's a newborn in a way.
Yeah,
and she puts a little semillita in a plate in the microwave, and then she goes again with some sort of numbers, and she brings that out into a whole chicken.
Oh,
I think we're not the only ones.
Common. You've that scene is or that kind of thing. I have you ever seen I Dream of Jeannie?
Yes.
Okay, so she has a job at some point where she's working as a store clerk, and she's trying to sell, I think, ovens. And so people are like, no, I already have an oven, or mine's better, or whatever. And she's trying to sell, but she's using her powers.
Oh.
And so she's like, no, if you just do this and this and this, like a fresh coconut cake, And so that people are like, can you do a meringue pie? And she's like, sure, you got it. Roast beef. So people are like, oh my gosh, I want this.
Oh, God.
Oven, So yeah, I think anything that involves quick. And I think that's, even though that's as a kid it was oh, it'd be cool to have snacks. Now I think as an adult it'd be can you imagine the time I could save? I mean, just today I made chicken soup, caldo de pollo, and the amount of work it goes into just taking out the espuma, man. Just so that to me is just oh my God, why do you have to do this? It's necessary, I get it, but the fact that you have to do that, and so I'm oh, to save the time and do that. But what about you? Can you remember something from something you've seen or something when you were young that you were I wish this was invented?
I think for me, it was, I saw a couple of years ago, I saw a show called Altered Carbon. Very futuristic, very sci-fi, what I really enjoy. And this, and the whole premise of the thing is that they can live forever if you have the money to.
Oh.
Because they can make clones of your body or someone else's, and then that way you transition from one person to another is they take away sort of your conscious that is downloaded in a disk or something like that, and then they put it on the other person. Now, I don't think it's as good as it sounds, or it's as fun as it sounds. And the show makes a really good point at showing that it's not as fun as it sounds.
Okay.
But when I first watched it, I did think, could that be possible?
Oh,
Could we arrive to a world where, people live forever, not necessarily because their bodies don't decompose, but because they have just replicas of themselves. Right. So,
which taps into a little bit in the conspiracy before we get
there. Yeah, I know.
Like, whoa.
But I really thought that would be cool. Obviously, it's for rich people. It would always be for the ones that have the means. But and obviously, I think we as Christians, I don't think that's something that we would employ.
Right.
Because it's kind of like, well, you're supposed to die.
Let it be.
Let it be. But I did think it was, because just as the whole show also says, okay, if your conscience can be unloaded that way or downloaded that way, then you can also tap into someone else's unconscious.
Right.
So then you can live what they've lived, or you can experience what they've, experienced. So I thought, that is nice.
See, that to me is like something that I wish there was. Like, I wish there was a way that I could show you memories, especially as we, like, this whole channel, we sometimes talk about like past experiences, and we talk about like just, what we've lived. Sometimes I'm like, I wish that you could, I wish there was a way that I could put something on you and you could see exactly the memory. And then not only just for you, but for me to relive some happy memories, but then maybe the reason why it's not there is because you live in the past. But
that is true.
As I was telling this to my husband, because he's like, oh, what inventions? Like, I don't know why he was very much like, let me see your inventions, or let me see what you would want to be created. And I told him that, and he's like Harry Potter? And I was like, what do you mean Harry Potter? He's like, there's a scene where they, like, with the wand, they remove, like, a memory, and they put it in this, like, pool, and you could see the memory. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's already kind of in a film. And I'm like, okay, it's probably already out there, like, on a film, but, like, I wish it was, like,
like real,
obviously. And he's like, oh, okay, I thought you were, like, coming up with inventions that like you hadn't seen on film or in real life. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure as we go through this, they're gonna be in film or something. Yeah. But like, yeah, definitely something that involves like me being able to see a memory that you want to share, or vice versa. So, but down to like you're in it, not just seeing.
Oh, also feeling it.
Yeah, feeling it. So like if like we go back to embarrassing stories and stuff, and just like you're a spectator as you're seeing this happen to me, and
but I'm also feeling the whole.
You're feeling the whole experience. So I think that would be fun to have something like that where you could relive.
Someone else's experiences,
yeah, or your own, like to sit in a memory, like I like, for me, there's like sometimes I wish I could go back and relive a childhood memory, because as a child you obviously experience it a certain way, but you take things for granted, or you don't really take it all in. I wish I could go back to specifically playing computer games with my dad, because that was always something that he did with me. And as a kid, you're so like in the game,
right? But
I wish I could be a spectator to see his face, to see was he having a good time, was he like do this and do that, just to be like observing
as an adult, to take it in, because as a child you don't perceive a lot of things,
right?
But as an adult, I can see.
And even to take in like the computer, because obviously as a child, how things are bigger, things are more extravagant, and I know that we didn't have a lot of money. And so I don't even remember if the computer was like new, because to me it just seems like it was new. It seems like it had all the gadgets. But what if I were to go back to that memory and it's like, I don't even know how he managed to like
to turn it on
and to make it work, just so that I could have fun, So I would like to go back like that.
Well, I mean, I know that this episode is probably going to be really long, guys. So, but because right now that you were saying that, and that you mentioned, but maybe that could be like living in the past.
Right.
Do you think that people would use it just like to live in the past and not move forward?
Yes.
More so than like, oh, I'm just gonna live it for a little bit because I remember it and that's it.
I think the problem, the downside to that is that you wouldn't be able to have full closure.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you just lost a husband or a wife, your spouse. Why wouldn't you go back and relive all the conversations and the experiences? And it would only reinforce you not wanting to move forward and move on with your life. And so I feel like you would get stuck. And not to quote Harry Potter again, but like there is a scene in the first movie or the second movie where he finds this mirror and he can see his parents. And it's a simulation. It shows you what your deepest desire is. And since he's an orphan, it's his deepest desire to wish he could have had that experience. So the school principal, is like kind of like he finds him there and he's just like, men have wasted years trying to just wait. They have wasted years just standing here and seeing their greatest wish. But remember, it's a simulation. It's not real. It's not like, yes, it's showing what you feel, but you have to move forward, And then he's like, some have even gone mad because, it's like, it's so real that you're seeing it, it's almost like tangible. So basically what he's telling him is like, kind of like, as hard as this sounds, that you don't have your parents and you can't ever be with your parents, if you stay here, you'll never move forward. So yeah, it's definitely like, as much as, I think reliving certain memories, but then now that you say that, maybe it reignite trauma for some people. Because then it's like, what if you remember a memory a certain way and you go back and you realize like, oh, that's not how it went, or, I don't think this happened with me, but for example, in that situation, let's say I want to go back and I want to see my dad playing video games, with him. And what if, for whatever reason, the memory that I go back to, he's like annoyed and he's a frustrated father, like most parents are, where they're like, oh my gosh, like I just want my kid to stop being rowdy or whatever. Right. And I go back and I'm like, oh, like I thought this was a happy moment. And he's just trying to like, silence.
Right, because even that is relative, right? What for you might have been fun, for them might have been like, I don't know how to handle her or him at this moment. That is true.
So in a sense, as much as it sounds nice, yes, there are some downsides to it.
And then I was thinking, do you think that could also prevent us from actually developing empathetic and sympathetic feelings? Like, for example, how you were saying, I'll share my feelings,
Oh, okay.
And now the only way I can feel for someone is if they share with me, if they sort of make me go through that, But besides that, like if you're telling me right now, I would be like, oh, I don't know how that would feel. I can't even empathize. I can't sympathize until you connect me to whatever device it is. And then I'll feel for you.
No.
You don't think so?
At first, my gut answer was saying yes, but then no, because we already live in an age where we're in a digital age, where a lot of things are videotaped.
Right.
So you could argue you are watching someone else's experience. How many times haven't we watched a meme of someone falling?
Right.
Just falling.
Right.
And some people in the comments are like, this is hilarious. Look how they rolled. And then someone else is like, no, this is really like embarrassing. This is humiliating. Someone else is taking it to another, like they're like, this should be taken down. This is borderline bullying, And so I think we're already there. I think we already see so many experiences on social media.
Right.
And it evokes different emotions from different people. Now, again, I don't want to put myself in a bad light, but at the same time, I've got to be honest. There's this page called Kids Getting Hurt on Instagram. And you know what? Like, their kids are resilient, but like I go back to that and I'm like, whoa, like the kid fell, the kid like a tennis ball hit them right in the eye, like so many things. And yes, sometimes it brings out a chuckle out of me, and I'm just like, okay, so where's the empathy there,
right.
So yeah, I think it really depends on who you're showing. But the general public, I don't think everyone will feel what you want them to feel.
Okay, that is true. That is okay. Yes. A lot of subjectivity here.
Yeah.
A lot of subjectivity here. But anyway,
Give me another invention.
another invention. I think I can think of a lot. I don't think I have a grand imagination. But I'm pretty sure when I was a child, I did think of like, oh, this would be nice or that. But I don't think I've ever pondered too much on something. But I think I will like it if there was a way to, ¿cómo se dice? To like, I'm pretty sure that maybe already exists, but like sometimes, I don't know if you know, but I don't know if it's happened to you, but sometimes you smell something and you're like, okay, what is that? Like it's bringing me memories. It's bringing me something, right? But you can quite put your finger on it. So it'd be nice if when that happened, like, I don't know, maybe you put it on your phone and it tells you.
Like pop up. Oh, this
like,
reminds you of this camp that you went to in 96.
Yeah, because to me me pasa mucho where I'm like, I smell something, it's like, oh my God, it's bringing memories of something I just don't remember what. Or I'm eating something and this tastes like I don't know what it tastes like, but so a lot of those happen to me. Or even like, for example, when you have deja vu moments, you know how people say it's not that it's deja vu because you've lived it already, but it's your brain collects so much information, and so much of that information is repetitive. So sometimes there are moments where it would feel like deja vu, but you haven't lived that. It's just because it looks similar to another memory, it feels like it. So I wish that when that happened, I'll be like, okay, what is this? Why did this remind me? And then a whole image would pop up of like, oh, okay. I see why the similarities. I see why. Because sometimes I'm like, why does this feel like deja vu?
Yeah.
And I would want to go back to that original like scene or experience and be like, okay, yeah, I can see why it's so similar.
I'm such a creature of habit, and I do forget a lot. I feel like I have lived the same day twice. Not necessarily like completely throughout the day, because I do think there's variations, of course. But because of how I am, I know I forget. Like, did I already have this conversation with this person? So like I feel like there are times that I'm like, I feel like I lived it, So I feel like because of that, and because I am repetitive, I had less now. I've had deja vu, but before, like with growing up with my sister, I feel like there was a lot that I'm like, we've already had this conversation. Like, I know we have had this conversation. So I think that's just because, like, I think we're creatures of habit, that sometimes you tend to revert in a sense to certain things. So catch me in a couple years, because obviously I've only been married for almost 3 years. So I haven't had that with Joel yet. It's still too soon for me to be like, we lived this exact day a couple years ago. I feel
like you've had a lot of inventions.
I have like I say I have, like, I'm working on them. They're in the lab. So one that I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish that you could open up a book that you enjoy reading, especially fictional or whatever, like something along those lines. I mean, I guess it could be anything, but that you could visualize it. Like, there's a way that you could push a button, or two buttons. One's like just reading, and one is like visual. And if you click the visual, as you read, as you go through the pages, you visually see exactly what's happening. Because how many times haven't you watched a film and you've read the books, and you're like, oh, they took that part out, and I really like. I read all the books for Hunger Games, for example, and there was so many things that I was like, that's not how it happened, or like they missed this part, or like this was a really good thing that they could have incorporated. And so I wish there was a way that the way that I also envision a book, because that's also something that like, is relative, right? You envisioned this character to look this way, and you envisioned this character to look that way. But if there was a way that this book could also connect to my imagination and could visually show me page for page what's going on, like a movie that's like 6 hours long, I would be like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I got to see everything.
Oh,
you know?
that sounds really good.
Because like books are very descriptive.
Yeah.
Even, like down to like the books that like romantic books, they're like just the looks, just the like look,
yeah.
just the look, the way you looked. And I always like, well, I imagined the way that the look was, but how did the look
Looks, yeah.
Because then they do it in the film and they're just like, you're just
like, okay, that was it.
That's
like,
not
that was
how
it
it went.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then I wish there was a way that we could fly without feeling cold. Like, I guess the first one should be, I wish you could fly. But I always thought if we could fly, there's like mist and there's cold and there's wind. Like, I wish there was a way that you could fly but not necessarily feel impacted by all of that.
By
and
rain,
same thing with
by wind.
swimming.
Yeah.
Because I can't swim, and I'm like, I wish I could just be underwater and be like a mermaid, and and not feel the effects of the water in a sense. But
that's very interesting, because then that brings the question of, for example, for the first one, birds probably have something in their feathers that they're like water repellent or something, right?
Yeah, because enough for them to not like stop flying.
Exactly. And then also,
fish.
Are fish wet while they're in the water?
Right.
Or are they, or is that not a thing for them because they're fish? It's like, so then the question is, would you need scales?
I guess I would.
And for flying, would you need feathers, or just that, like?
Probably. I guess for all of this, we need to invent layers of something, But I think it's because, for example, I've heard people who describe scuba diving and how it's an extremely like once in a lifetime thrilling experience, but you really have to control your mind and your fear. And that's something that, like, I have done some things that I've pushed myself to, like, I can do this, but that's one that I'm like, no. To the point that your eardrums could burst. Like, como que no. Like, I rather
it's not worth it.
It's not worth it for me. But the last one that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I wish this would exist per se. The term we always say, I wish I would be a fly in a wall
on the
for
wall.
this.
Yeah.
Dude. But then at the same time, it's the same thing. You'd waste your time just stalking people, Like, but to me, it's just
but
like,
you would choose.
You would choose,
and you would have like a limited amount of time per month.
Yeah, good. There's your limit, right? But like, to me, it's just like not even in a creepy way for other people. Like, sometimes I'd like to be a fly in the wall. Like, and follow my husband at work. Like, what does he do?
Toxica. Is he thinking of me?
No, but like, okay, I guess part of this also comes from my dream of Jeannie, because she could shrink very small, and sometimes Tony, the character, the Tony Nelson, would put her in his pocket, and so he'd carry her along wherever they'd go, and she's like just like looking, So like, I think it's that, like, I'm with you, and I could also like see everything with you. I guess with that, I would say consensual, of course, like,
you would know I'm with you.
You would know I'm with you.
You would know like I'm that fly on the wall.
I'm not just creeping in, into your room, I mean, like, I want to experience this with you, but it's like secretive. Like, I'm not allowed to, like, which is already, like, again, almost done with like Avengers and the Wasp and stuff. Okay. But still, like, I think that'd be really cool.
I think where that I feel where that comes from, that desire from some besides from that, because sometimes I've questioned, like, okay, I'm living my life, but how would it feel to live someone else's life?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So like obviously you're your own main character, but sometimes I wonder, like, what is my mom doing?
Yes.
Like, what is Kelly doing? How is living her life?
This
like,
day going for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I sometimes wonder, like, how would it feel to be so-and-so? How would it feel to be, this other person? how is it, what is a day in their lives like?
Yeah.
You know, and I think when you're the fly on the wall, you're like, oh no, yeah, I get it. I get why they're this or they're that, or wow, you know, despite the day, they managed to be this way or that way. And so I feel like that would give you a sense of like, first of all, I'm not the main character, and then second of all, I am understanding, I guess. But one could argue you could arrive to that with a conversation.
Have you ever had this like existential crisis per se? Because okay, so if you get me out there, please comment. So there are times that I'm like, okay, this is my life, right? But this is my life, you know, like you're a character in my life. Does that make sense? Because I'm looking at life through my eyes, but you're looking at life through your eyes, which is so crazy, you know? But it's like at the same time, because we wake up every morning and it's like, this is my life. These are my hands. This is, you know, what I touch, you know? Like sometimes I think like, okay, it's going to sound so narcissistic.
Say it.
I think that's also why it reinforces my faith. Because sometimes I'm like, I mean something.
Oh.
Like I matter.
Huh.
Because to me, it's like, why do I have life? Okay. So part of me, it's like, if I have life and
I see.
Because this is my life and you're, in a sense, the character in my life and you are the person that I interact with. But at the end of every single day, this is my life. It's for a reason. You know, I have some kind of purpose. I have to be here for a reason. Otherwise, like,
Ya me hubiera muerto.
Right. And then there's all the questions that come with like, what happened before? You know, did I just woke up one day, you know, and I was born, you know, and this has been my life ever since, you know? And we obviously, you know, believe in, you know, we were created and everything, but sometimes it's just like, but I must mean something. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that feeling. I don't know if that's too narcissistic, but part of me is just like, no, de algo sirve, because otherwise, why am I alive if it wasn't for something bigger? If it wasn't for a purpose? And if I go further, then I trip myself out. But like, it's just like, I don't know.
What is my purpose? No, but I do agree. I think the twist there is, yes, you know, if I'm here, it's for a reason, and I need to find out what that reason is. And then I think as Christians, hopefully, not just as Christians, in general, but as Christians, we know, okay, our general purpose is to share the gospel, right? To bring glory and honor to God. So how do I do that? And I think you go into like, what am I talented in? You know, what is my potential? How am I developing it? How am I sharing it? And, you know, how am I speaking truth and life to people through my faith? And I think it's, you know, I think knowing that you matter is important. Or else you have people that they go through their life just literally living because they can't die.
And, you know, it's interesting because I know people have the flip side of that. I know people feel the flip side of, this world is so vast and so big. Who am I in this whole scheme of things? You know, and I guess that's where the difference is that I wake up and my mindset is like, no, if I woke up, it's because I'm supposed to do something. I matter in this world. I'm supposed to do something. But I know that it's overwhelming for other people, and that's why they have existential crises, because it's like, what happens after death? What am I supposed to do? Do I just become nothing? And so I get that there are people who respond to the existential questions differently. But for me, it just happens to be in the positive, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, because think about it too. I think balance. I think balance, because also you have people that are very they're very like, that's a term, nihilistic, something like that. Correct me, please. And they think I'm nothing. I'm but dust, a speck of dust in the whole realm of things or whatever. and they go through life thinking I don't matter, you know. And I'm not saying in a very negative way or in a very pessimistic way, but they go through life saying, I'm not gonna say anything because will it matter at the end of the day?
Right.
You know, I'm not gonna go rich for the starts because will it matter? I mean, Ecclesiastes sometimes gives you that of like
Life is
vanity,
vanity.
you know, vanity. Todo es vanidad y todo se va a ir y acabar. And so it's kind of like, okay, is this book helping or not? You know,
Balance.
but I think it all comes down to balance. It all comes down to tampoco me voy a sentir la última coca en el desierto.
Right.
You know, pero tampoco I'm gonna wake up every morning thinking it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Nothing matters at the end of the day. No, you know. So I think we're on the right track. We're on the right track of like, okay,
You matter, okay? You
yeah,
guys
everyone matters.
By the way, this is a total unrelated to the thing. You know how Joel's podcast, UNFC, their fans are bromigos?
Oh, really?
You guys need to come up with something. Like, I don't know, like
did they
relators.
name themselves or?
No, since day one, they've always called their audience the bromigos. For everything,
okay,
it's the
okay.
bromigos. And I'm like, we need a name for our fans. So for those true fans and want to create it yourself, let us know. But I don't know.
That's gonna be
the
interesting.
relators.
The relators. Oh no.
Something. Come up with something. But anyways, okay. So now that we've covered some inventions that we wish that existed, you know, and we're tapping into could this happen? Could it not happen?
Is there something out there?
Is there something out there? You know, how do you feel about UFOs? And I would even add, how do you feel about UFOs as a Christian?
Oh,
Because I feel like that takes things to a whole nother level. Because there's people, I believe in UFOs. But then when you add Christian, it's like, is it biblical? So first and foremost, how do you feel about UFOs?
Man, that's a hard one because I feel like part of me wants to believe in them because to me it's like where the universe is so vast and God is so vast that if he created us and the little tiny, you know, insects and all the small worlds in our own universe, what if we're just one small world in another universe,
Right,
you know?
right.
So, like sometimes you look at you know, the world of a virus and you're like, that's a world in itself.
Right.
And then, you know, you look the world of an ant or of, you know, something small, like our own cellular world.
Organs,
You know?
bacteria.
Yeah, bacteria, everything that goes into like your eye. Like, I don't know how many of you guys have looked into what happens to your eyes, but your eyes is like its own universe. There's so many things going on, so many like things that need to be in perfect synchronization for you to see, for you to make out what you're seeing, you know? And so all of that, sometimes it does mess with my mind of like, if that is happening just within me and around me,
Who's to say?
who's to say that this world is not just a small world in another world?
And to confirm,
You know?
we're not just talking about unidentified flying objects. We're talking about aliens.
Aliens,
you know,
yes,
and
aliens.
all of that, which
Los
obviously
ovnis.
aliens already, there's a lot of definitions for aliens
Right.
nowadays. You're an alien if you're not a U.S. Citizen. But we're specifically talking about aliens that are extraterrestrial,
Beings. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think for me, I've always struggled with this because part of me is like, okay, on one end, I always think I think it was this or last year, the U.S. government released like actual footage of unidentified flying objects, which now I can't remember the term. I'll put it on the thing. It's a different name. They're not calling UFOs anymore. The U.S. government is calling it a different name. And I can't remember what it is right now. But the point is they released, I think it was like 7 different videos. And you see these radars of these flying objects. They're there and then they're not there, or they're moving so fast. And the guys or the government are explaining how it's like, this doesn't make any sense. How fast this aircraft could be flying, So obviously, people who obviously believe that this is, you know, a UFO, that this is aliens, you know, some people believe, well, there it is. And there's other people that, you know, believe it's like, this is just how advanced technology is. This could be aircraft from a different country. And then there's a conspiracy of like, what if it's our aircraft and we're just doing it ourselves, you know, and we're trying to say that it's potentially
blame someone else.
It's someone else,
conspiracy.
or potentially it's aliens, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so part of me is just like, oh my God, they all fit, you know. But it is sometimes hard for me to envision a world where aliens is part of the equation, because I always go back to like, how is that biblical? Like, if we believe in the end times and we believe in, I mean, the Bible does say que las ciencias se van a avanzar. The science will advance, technology will advance, and we see it every day.
Right.
And so that's part of it. Like, okay, so how far is science going to advance before Jesus comes back? But then part of me is like, but where does it say anything about aliens, you know? And I guess it's like interpretation. And then I always thought, what if aliens to the human is like, oh, that's an alien, but what if it's an angel? Because if you see descriptions in, I believe it's in Daniel or even Revelations,
right,
and you see these angels, and if you see, like, if you Google like what angels in the Bible look like, it's creepy, man. Creepy. You have like this rueda with eyes all over, and you're like, yeah,
the one with wings and eyes all over the wings.
The one with different heads, you know. So you're kind of like, what if someone has
seen them,
seen that, and been like, I believe in aliens, you know. So,
and the Bible also talks about signs and wonders in the sky.
Exactly.
So
it's a lot, honestly. It's a lot, but part of me does feel like, and we've had these conversations before of like, we don't know how much or how advanced the US government already is.
Right.
And we think what we see in technology right now, that's it. But it's like they're working with 10 times more, 100 times more advanced than what we could ever imagine.
That is true, yeah.
The other day I was watching an ad on Hulu of, I think it's called Metaverse or Meta something. And they have these glasses
VR
where they're adjusting reality, like levels of like this girl, she's trying to record music and she's adjusting on the metaverse. And that to me was like, wait a second. Wasn't this like a thing that I saw on Marvel when Iron Man first came out? Tony Stark is literally adjusting levels of, you know, things but it's obviously all futuristic. It's all like, this isn't real. And now I'm seeing an ad of someone adjusting something through VR. So like, to me, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like face recognition, and like you see things where it's like, I mean, I probably shouldn't say this, but I know that some people out there use their thumb to open their cars, to open their doors, to open their phones. Obviously, you use it to anything, and it's like, how did we get so advanced with technology that we can now do that? You know, and what's next?
I do think the government, they have a lot of technology that they're going to release step by step. And I do think that we're going to, perhaps our children, perhaps not in our time, but perhaps our children, or even I'll stretch it to the children of my children, will experience a world of technology. Everything is technology. Everything is just, you think of it and it's there. You touch something and it does something else. Yeah. So I do think that science right now is very advanced. They're just not letting us see it.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's just another form of control. Definitely.
Control, and also I think for like we always talk about this also with with each other at work, and sometimes we talk about, you know, how this is all going to work out one day when we talk about the one world order.
Right.
And how this is just paving the way, you know, like, and we've talked about how, like, because of COVID and everything, things will eventually just make sense of like, oh yeah, sure, take more control, or yeah, sure, if you need more information, yeah, sure. The other day, which kind of goes into the whole conspiracy thing, I saw that the US is going to start banning people who have been vaccinated to give blood. And that, okay, first of all, I don't give blood because I'm always anemic. But second of all, to me, it's like, okay, why? Why wouldn't you want my blood? Si acá unos cuantos meses me estaban diciendo que I need this, but why wouldn't you want someone else to have this? And then you know, as a non-vaxxed, you had never been vaxxed, they're always calling you for your blood.
Yes. And not only that, but to me, and I told you this, when the vaccine started coming out, before I would donate blood, they would always ask me, are you vaccinated? No. Okay, come in. And one nurse actually told me, don't get vaccinated.
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay. Well, and every time till this day, when I'm going to donate blood, they ask me, are you vaccinated? No, I'm not. Okay.
We want you.
I mean, they don't say that anymore. Like that one nurse, I don't know what happened to her. But to me, it was weird. To me, it was weird that, okay, here it is, the government even paying people to get vaccinated. Like they were pushing it, the whole passport thing. Like to me, it was just, this is insane. I mean, this is, it wasn't even about the vaccine anymore. It was about like, you need to do what we're asking you by all means possible.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was scary. And then to hear people from the same, what's it called, like the same industry, I guess, nurses telling me don't get vaccinated, or asking me every time I would donate, are you vaccinated? And when I would say yes, sort of hearing relief. That was interesting. Yeah. That was kind of okay. On one end, people are making a big deal and they're making you feel a certain way about not being vaccinated. But on another end, you have people that are like, don't do it, or whatever. And then now, years later, or 3 years later, 2 years later, come to find out that they're doing that. And not only that, but come to find out that the government has been saying, oh, well, yeah, there's been problems with people that have gotten vaccinated. Mm-hmm. There's so many research out there that has said, oh, yeah, some people develop this and some people develop that after the vaccine. And it's just, okay,
That, so. I think that whole period of, how many things were starting to get banned on YouTube, on Instagram, just things that, even if you were going to post something regarding COVID, there was like a suggestion that would pop up that would say, like it would almost like kind of try to discourage you from posting whatever you were going to post.
Get more information.
Or if you were trying to repost something that was, anti-vax related, it would say, this is not, this isn't a reliable source for COVID-19, and regardless of where you lie on the spectrum, vaccinated, non-vaccinated, it still was very like, why are they like having all of this control, that to the point that it's like, they were censoring so many things. And so to me was already kind of like, oh, this is so scary, I got vaccinated because we were gonna go to Europe, and that was always like my thing. Like, at the end of the day, I want to go to Europe, and that's my thing. And I did, not once, not once in any store, in any like touristic site that we went to, nothing, not even in the airports did they ever ask if I was vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And there was that part of me that was like, because I resisted. I was really like, no, like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to get vaccinated. And the closer we got, we're like, okay, we have to do it. And then once we got to Europe, it was like, oh my gosh, no one asked for it. I could have literally not been vaccinated, But obviously, like, it's just one of those things where I feel like it's just paving the way for control, regardless of where you lie on the spectrum. I do think that, it's just more things that they can have on you. Like if the COVID passport does pass, like to me, it's like, that's
I don't
scary,
think it's going to pass anymore.
I actually think it will. I think someday it will. Because to me, the amount of control that happened during COVID and how, you know, a lot of us had to just submit to, you know, we have to do this for safety, or we have to do this, you're going to lose your job. You know, all of that control affected, I think, the way we think now, to the point that it's like, okay, if something else ever happened in the future, we know that the general public will comply.
Oh,
so
in that sense,
part.
yes. Oh, yeah. In that sense, I think watch this video get banned.
Imagine.
In that sense, yeah, I do think that it was a very soft launch on how much control the government has on us, and it couldn't be the government. It's just people in power. Let's just say people in power that just, you know, they control the universe, the 1% maybe, and just how they were going about things, you know. And I honestly think that I don't know how many of you have read it, but I've read 1984 by George Orwell. And that book, it's starting to sound very similar. It's starting to sound very like, you know, this is possible. And I remember after I read the book, I never abbreviate things. Mm-hmm. But after reading that book, I was like, menos. I'm not going to abbreviate nothing. You know, because quieras or not, language is another way of control. Mm-hmm. Language is another way of, like, they're making you think less and less and less. And I see how my own nephews text, and it's like, what is that? It's like they're speaking in code, you know?
WYD.
LOL, you know, things like that. And now it's, and think about it. It's not just LOL, but they're using it as verbs now. LOLing, LOL'd, you know, and to me it's like, what?
That's true. What? That's true.
So I don't abbreviate stuff. Yeah. And I don't like it when people abbreviate stuff. Yeah. Because most of the time I don't get it. I don't understand, because that's not me.
Yeah.
So
especially now with the new lingo.
Exactly. There's a lot more things, you know. Like for example, I use it legit. But legit it's a short version of legitimized, or, you know, legitimate. So it's like, okay, why can't we just use legitimate, shorter, you know? But we're using shorter and shorter and shorter things. And in my theory there, or my conspiracy there, is that they're using shorter and shorter terms because, yes, they want to make dumber and dumber and dumber kids, you know, or us.
TikTok thing.
Yeah, exactly. Shorter spans, you know, shorter attention spans. Mm-hmm. You know, so to me, it's like, don't abbreviate. if you can't help it,
anything from this video,
if you can't help it, you know, because I mean, in 1984, that's all they're doing. They're abbreviating things. They're making shorter stuff. They're making they're limiting your language. And so now someone tells you something and you're like, what is he saying? I don't understand, you know? And so I think when you limit people's language, you're by default you're limiting their way of thinking. You're limiting their critical thinking. Right. And so now, like, you know, like for example, fit. People say, "Oh, I like your fit."
Oh, the outfit one. That's right. I've heard that one.
You know, and it's like,
by the way, for my parents out there, there's an Instagram page called Bark Technologies. If you ever want to find out where your kids are texting and the abbreviation, I'm not even a parent and I'm already following that because I'm like, I don't even understand what they're saying. And fit was on there.
You know, like, so I mean, there's so many words and so much, you know, lingo, I guess, that to me, I mean, do what you will. You know, erase, scratch what I said of like, don't abbreviate, do what you will. Just know.
Don't lose.
Yeah. Just know that when you limit yourself in your language and in your writing, you're limiting yourself in your critical thinking. So that's all I got to say about that.
That in itself is already, I think, a conspiracy in a sense. How much they've taken away from our critical thinking in our education nowadays. Yeah. You know, it's just, they want everyone to assimilate to one type of thinking. Yeah. And now it's like, if you even remotely think differently, it's like, why? you know? And it's like we need critical thinking in order for us to advance as a society, in order for us to challenge each other, in order for us to keep each other accountable. But that's also fading.
Another of my theories or conspiracy theories is the whole like cancel culture. I feel like, to me, I feel like when you tell people, oh, you have the right to not feel offended, or you have
the right to express yourself.
No, like for example, when you tell people, oh, that was offensive, you should be canceled. Like that, to me, it just goes back to the critical thinking. When you have a critical thinker, you can say, okay, that was offensive, but I'm not gonna tell the person, oh, because that was offensive, now you need to shut up.
Oh, right.
Now you need to be canceled,
censored,
or censored. That to me is critical thinking at its best. Okay, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I don't have to censor you. I don't have to shut you up. That's your opinion, and I'm okay with taking in your opinion. I'm okay with even, laughing at the crude joke or whatever, but no make it mine, And I think now we've told children so much, and other people too, that, oh, you're right. I shouldn't have said that. I'm so sorry. And now we crucify ourselves every time because it's like, yeah, that was offensive. And now you have a whole culture of people that are, tantito dices algo and they're like, oh my God, that was so offensive. And they break.
But then they'll come at you if for whatever reason you say one wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's like whoosh.
And then they cancel you. And it's like now you can't even say, oh, that was offensive for you to cancel me.
To me it was always like, as much as, even though I got vaccinated, it was interesting to see that a lot of people for that were very much like, no, you have to do it. Mm-hmm. And these were the same people that were also saying my body, my choice, and so it was also kind of like, oh, okay. So when it's convenient for you, when it is something that you can say, okay, no, this I want, then now I have a choice. Now I have a right. But if it's something that you don't, that I don't agree with, no, now you have to do it. Yeah. And to me, it was just like that completely goes against to what you initially say. I want to have the right to do this. Okay, so the person that wants to have the right to do that, but it's like it depends on what it is. Depending on what it is, then I will go ahead and be able to say, okay, this is okay and this is not.
Which I mean, by the way, don't take this the wrong way, guys. I don't agree with being offensive just for the sake of being offensive. Right. We need to be respectful, and we're called for a better good. We're called to speak life into people, right? And if you can avoid it, if you can avoid being offensive, hey, props to you. But what I'm saying is, like, no podemos ir por el mundo diciéndole, hey, what you're saying is wrong, what you're saying is this, me hirió, me esto, me aquello, me el otro, me, and then you change. Change. Everyone needs to change around me. Mm-hmm. And now, yes, you see people changing, and you see facilities changing, and you see all this change, and in benefit of me because I felt offended. And now I don't know how to deal with life. Now I don't know how to deal with a situation where really it is out of my control. No one is going to pamper me.
Right.
And now it's like, oh my goodness, I can't do nothing. I'm this defenseless person. Or worse yet, I'm so empowered that now I'm going to go deeper into my delusion of like I get to be whatever. I get to function in whatever I want because no one is going to offend me, no one's going to stop me, no one is going to say anything because the world is structured a certain way. Right. And now you have delusional people, doing crazy things. Like you see, there's so many videos on YouTube and Instagram, like the one you sent me today in the morning, of like people just being ridiculous. Why? Because no one told them anything. No one said anything that they didn't like. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes, even in friendship, we've said things to each other that were offensive. But what did we do? Okay, yeah, we might have said, okay, that was a bit offensive. However, maybe there's some truth in there. Let me look within. you know, as opposed to that's total lies. You're lying. You're offensive. You need to go and think about what you said. And I'm right. And, you know, no one should tell me anything because I'm just this precious little thing.
One of our first conversations we've had on this channel was about how in a friendship, the ride or die mindset is not always helpful. It's not always beneficial because I can't just always support what you do.
Right.
I can't just always be like, yeah, girl,
Get it.
you're doing great, you know, when you're not, you know, and I think that that's what's happening in society. That's what's happening in education. In a lot of ways, it's, you know, we want you to think this way.
Yeah.
And if you so much step out of it, you're going to be canceled, censored, isolated. And that's very scary when you think about
Yes.
someone who, you know, someday wants to have children. To me, it's like, oh my goodness, you know, as Christians, you know, we are becoming more and more of the minority, and our ideas that were once like, yes, I can understand why you would have that moral opinion, now is becoming a radical thought. Now it's becoming a extremist and what must I say, extremist thought, you know, and why would you even think like that?
Yeah.
You know, so that's very scary. But I also think that going in the whole conspiracy, I think that it's just paving the way for the end times. You know, the Bible is true that the things are only going to get harder and harder for us to be able to preach what we preach. It's only going to be harder for us to talk about what we believe without offending someone. You know, right now, you know, thankfully we have the capacity to talk about our faith, regardless of whether people agree with it or not.
Right.
We have a space that we can share about it. But I know that there's going to come a time where, for the simple fact that we're Christian, without even having a conversation or without even, you know, getting to know us, it's already going to be like, stay away. Stay away from those people because those are radical thinkers.
Right.
Those are extreme thinkers. And so I think that, you know, it's just going to pave the way for the day that, you know, the Lord returns and he comes and takes us away.
Jesus. But I do think that this is another conspiracy. I do think that when you have a divided, when in a government you have divided people, they have more control. The government has more control because then you have divided people. They're not going to
side with each other.
And so if you control a minority that's not really a minority, but it's been a majority, you have it, you win, you know. And I think that's right now that's how it's functioning.
Yeah.
Where they have a minority and the best interest of the minorities, but they haven't been a minority for a while. But you just empower those masses, all the other ones are going to become weaker or no weaker, but they're going to become minorities now.
Right.
And I think that's happening. I think we have a lot of, I'm sorry for what I'm about to say, but I think the majority is now people with no critical thinking skills, and and the government is empowering those people. And the people with critical thinking skills are less and less and less, or they're being
older
censored
as well.
Or they're being censored, or they're older, and so people don't see them as like valuable members of society anymore because they're like, oh, you're old, you're from those times,
right?
You know, whatever. But however, as much as I see that there is a generation of younger people that are standing up to that lack of common sense and the lack of critical thinking. And that gives me hope. Now, that could also be because I'm surrounded by those kind of people. Maybe I see that as like, okay, we're rising up. But perhaps, you know, if I were to get out of this circle of people, maybe out there in the world is like, oh my goodness, you know, no, they are a majority. They're winning. Right. They're going to stay here for a while.
Right.
You know, so maybe I'm just hopeful that critical thinkers are going to rise up again. But even like everything on the extremes is bad. Yeah. You also have another generation of critical thinkers, and you're going to have people that are going to be like, I'm so smart, I'm so intelligent that, you know, I'm going to rule the world. And then but also you have other people that are just so delusional. They want to be a tree one day. And it's like, okay, you don't want those people getting up and being a president. And then one day they're like, okay, yeah, you know, a tree is ruling all over you.
But it is very disheartening to see how, unfortunately, we are becoming, I can't think of a better word, dumber as a society. You know, I see so many videos on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram of people that are being interviewed on like very famous squares, like Times Square, or LA, somewhere. And they're just asking them questions like, you know, so what are the what are the two countries that are neighboring the U.S. borders? Simple question. People are like, is that Europe? You know, and then or you have someone that's like, okay, what about like I think there was one that was like, who was our first president of the United States? And someone was like, is that Obama? You know, and like you go down the line, basic math questions, basic things, you know, like what planet are we on? You know, Mars, like literally I've seen that, you know, like, is that Mars, you know, closest to the sun, right? Or something like that. And then the guys are just like, yes, you know, like they're just like, and it's like, these are people that are future voters, future parents, if not already. You know, and that to me is just like, oh man, like, and I feel that because I may know who the first president was and who our neighboring countries are, but it's like, do I really take the time to educate myself on things that matter? And do I really build myself up? And I do see that as something that's lacking, because people that are older than me, especially, you know, my in-laws, my mom, even our pastor, these are people that are watching the news. These are people that are reading. These are people that are constantly like, well, this is happening. And sometimes I'm like, I didn't read an article. I read a post about a snippet about the news, you know? And so that to me is just like, I'm only contributing to society as far as, you know, not putting myself in a position where I'm educating myself on what's really happening. Because, you know, even with the whole thing that happened about the balloons with China.
Oh, yeah.
My husband is a history buff, and he's the one that reads a lot. But he was explaining to me what was going on, and I was just like, man, if he had told me something completely different, I would have believed him. Because I didn't go and do my own research. I didn't read up on it. You know, if like... And I think that's what's also happening, you know, that we are, because of social media and because of what we have and the amount of time that we spend on wasting time, it's only eating away at more and more of our common sense.
And that, you mentioned something that it's also another conspiracy of mine, education. So much money gets put into education, but interestingly enough, not in the actual curriculum.
They never have time. They never have money for teachers.
Yeah, they never have money for teachers to pay them better. So our teacher can feel incentivized to, okay, I'm going to give a good lesson. I'm going to give food for thought, you know? No. But they're coming in with very different ideas. You know, my niece the other day was telling my sister, her older brother wanted to, no, my sister was telling her older brother or her, okay, my sister was telling her son, you need to get a haircut. Her little one, my niece, was like, no, he doesn't need to if he doesn't want to. It's his hair. He can do whatever he wants. And I'm like, excuse you? No. You know, and so my sister was kind of like, okay, you know, yes, and that's the thing with all these ideologies. They weave in truth into their thing. Because, yes, it's his hair. You know? And just as he chooses what clothes he uses, yes, he could choose if he wants to get a haircut or not. But my sister was thinking, this is only a small amount of ideology they're implementing in children. Al rato me va a venir a decir, pues si yo me quiero hacer 20 aretes, ¿a ti qué? You know, si yo quiero ir a hacer esto y aquello, ¿a ti qué? It's my body, my choice, you know? And so my sister was conflicted. She was like, okay, this is a child that has a hard time multiplying and adding, and yet comes home with these ideas that I'm like, those aren't hers.
Yeah.
You know, why are teachers not investing in making sure that she grasps the idea of addition and multiplication? You know, of course, esto se le va a pegar.
Right.
¿Por qué? Because you're making the child think you are that important that you decide what you want to do,
life.
what you want to do. And now, sounds good, right? And me going against it is like, oh my God, you're a bigot. Like, that's not right. Mm-hmm. But no, these are children, you know? Así como ahorita le gusta, I don't know, Peppa Pig, al rato le va a gustar Moana. Like, you know, and my head is like, okay. And obviously my nephew, being the voice of reason, was just like, okay, Rosie, you know, like, shh, you know, I will, Mom. I'll just think about what kind of haircut. And that's the thing. I feel like we've give so much option and so much empowerment to children that they don't know what to do with that. Mm-hmm. They, you know, even us as adults, you go to any place that has options, you get overwhelmed. You're like, man, there's so many things on the menu. I don't know what to order. And what do? You go for what you've always gone. Yeah. Or you venture out in something new, but you do it in a safe way, sort of like, okay, if I don't like it, I can still eat this or eat that or whatever, you know? But you usually go for what's safe. Mm-hmm. And so that's the same thing with children. You can't give them so many options and expect them to make the best just because they had so many options.
Right.
And so my sister eventually explained to her, look, it's not about that. You know, he has options. It's just what's not to compromise is that he needs a haircut, period. You know, because that's just the rule in my home, you know. But he can choose what kind of haircut. That's where he has the option. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another way of like controlling. They're controlling children to think a certain way, and if their parents don't think that way, they're being empowered to disrespect that. They're being empowered to, like, I mean, I've seen it, again, YouTube, Instagram, I've seen it so many times where own children would put their own parents on blast of like, can you believe my mom told me this and that and that? Can you believe that my mom kicked me out because of this and that? I mean, it's just, and now you have a whole bunch of people supporting that child, child that one day decides one thing and the next decides another, or that same, you know, in that same day within minutes.
It's emotions.
Yeah, exactly. And so that to me speaks control. ¿Qué mejor que destruir el núcleo familiar?
Yeah.
And let children know, but you can trust in the government. You can trust in XYZ organization to support you. Mm-hmm. And that's not the truth. They're supporting their own agenda. Now you're part of that. So it gets tough.
It's like, honestly, when it comes to like education, parenting in today's age, it's definitely like, ¿qué nos espera, señor? But, you know, as much as, you know, conspiracies and all of this may seem like it's taking, like in this conversation, it's taking a dark turn. I think that at the end, it should only instill in us, okay, I may not be able to control everything that happens in society. I may not even be able to control what the teachers teach and stuff like that, but I can control what happens in my home.
Right.
And I can control what I teach my children, what I do, if you don't have children, what I do with my own time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the only thing that we can do. You know, as Christians, it's, okay, I know I'm the minority, but at the same time, what am I going to do with that? Mm-hmm. Am I going to allow myself to be, you know, censored, or am I going to speak about my faith in the best way that I can? Am I going to allow for this ideologies to enter into my family, my friends, the people that I interact with? Or am I going to be the challenging thought? Am I going to be the critical person? Not rude, not offensive, not como se dice, when you, not belittling, but like, be like, hey, have you ever thought about it like this? Have you ever considered that? Have you ever done this? And be that at the very least.
Yes.
Because then, I used to hear this argument a lot of like, I don't want to have children because of the way that the things are happening in our world. And I used to have those worries as well. Like, do I really want to have, do I really want to bring children into this very, corrupted and confusing and ever-changing world when I already know that there's things that they're up against that I never experienced? But the more that I think about it, it's, if I don't have children, then there won't be anyone to be able to combat what is already there. There won't be any critical thinking left. There won't be anybody else that would be able to say, have you thought about it like this? And it's my responsibility as a Christian to instill children to be and think that way. And it's my responsibility as an individual to be that currently to the people around me, to whoever I interact with. So regardless of where you fall, maybe you have, more conspiracy theories than us. Maybe you believe in aliens or don't believe in aliens and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, regardless of what you believe or not with things that are out of our control, ask yourself, what are you doing in the meantime to try to combat different thinking?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your children, with your friendships, with your relationships that is giving a different perspective? Do you need to equip yourself more with more information? Do you need to do more research? Do you need to get into the word? At the very least, sometimes I tell myself, okay, I may not be the biggest history buff, or I may not know everything that's happening in the U.S. government, but do I know my word? At the very least, I need to at least be consistent in one area. And de qué me sirve saber tanto lo que está pasando en el mundo, pero ni puedo recitar una escritura. El día que no haya Biblia, ¿qué voy a hacer? El día que esté en una cárcel porque dije, yo creo en Jesucristo, ¿qué voy a hacer? Y hay veces que yo me siento antes de dormir and I start saying, el Señor es mi pastor, nada me faltará. And I'm reciting, I'm like, El Señor es mi pastor. And I'm like, wait, what's the next line? And I'm like, me falta aprenderme la escritura. It has to be in my heart. It has to be something that I put myself constantly in. Otherwise, I will fall to the same kind of trap and be of no influence and of no impact to the society that I'm in.
You need to equip yourself. You need to equip yourself, and also as I mean, a lot of our audiences are, they're part of our circle, and we have been reading the Bible and me ha fallado. But as we start reading the Bible, you start noticing there are patterns. There are patterns that till this day you see them. So that's where I think it gets very interesting.
Where are we on the cycle?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, okay, you start reading Genesis, Noah's times, and everyone was doing whatever they pleased, and it's just like, starting to sound familiar, and Sodom and Gomorrah, same thing. It's like, okay, that was another time, and it was years ago. And it still sounds familiar to my current, So to me, it's like, that's how you know the Bible is truth, because it's not talking about like a fiction, for example. Fictional books, they're talking about things that you're like, oh, wow, I've never thought of that.
Right.
And or whatever. Or they futuristic things or inventions or whatever. But the Bible, it's truth. It's the truth because you read it and you're like, I've seen that. I've lived that, or I've experienced that, and it's just oh my goodness. And that's how you know this is a relevant book.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term to describe the Bible, but this is a relevant these are relevant events that keep happening all throughout history. And if they keep happening all throughout history, best believe I need to know it so I can, like you said, where are we on the cycle?
Yeah.
You know, where are we on that turn of events, and are we prepared for that, for what's to come after that? So yeah, definitely this is an episode where
We could go on for
we
hours.
could go on for hours, and we thought it was gonna be more fun, but I think at the end it got really serious. But on another note, I mean, I know we've already extended it a couple minutes from our usual, but have you ever had an experience of like extraterrestrial life, or
No.
heard of someone that
I have heard stories.
Okay.
My husband, but I personally have not experienced anything. I would even say supernatural. You know, that was something out of the ordinary. That made me think of like, oh wow, you know, that I believe in extraterrestrials, and maybe that's why I lean more in the no. Yeah.
Okay. I myself haven't experienced nothing like that, but a couple years ago, we were in Mexico, and my mom was telling a story of like when she was a child, she had a dream, and she started saying, yeah, you know, when I was a child, I had a dream of like this tiny things like this big, going in and out of the kitchen where they used to live, and they had like focus on their heads, you know, like lights on their head, and they were all the same size but different designs on their heads, but they were all lights, and they were just going in and out. I don't know what they were doing, but you know, this is my mom telling the story, and she hid like behind the not the refrigerator, because I don't think they had a fridge back then, but she hid behind something. And she's telling this in like a Christmas, you know, reunion or something. And un tío y otra tía, they were all like, oh my God, we had the same dream. I had the same dream. They're all like, I had the same dream. Oh, I had the same dream. Did they look like this? Yes, they did. Was it here? Yes, it was there. Okay, what else? And then it turns out that same night, they all had the same dream. And so now, it's a story that in my family, it lives kind of like, ooh, would they exist? What was it? Like, was it really a dream and just them three had it? And because after that, no one spoke about it, because it was kind of like, okay, it was a dream, like, you know, whatever. But years later, you know, my mom is saying something that she thought was ridiculous, but it turns out that two other tios, or a tia and a tío, had the exact same dream, just from a different perspective of the kitchen. And so after that, we're just like, oh, okay. So it's interesting because I asked my mom if she believes in aliens and extraterrestrial things. She'll say like, no. But then I know that a part of her is like, but then again, maybe. What was that?
What was that? Yeah.
What was that? So, and I'm pretty sure mi tío Valde, which was the other one, I'm pretty sure he's more like, no, you know, that was a dream, you know, whatever. But my otra tía, I'm pretty sure she herself also también questions, like, what was that? You know, I don't think they lose sleep over it, but it was a very gnarly experience to be there while my mom is describing this and have the other two tios respond with, I had that same dream. I was just hitting somewhere else.
I mean, I have a brother-in-law that swears that he's seen, what are they called in Yucatan? What is it called?
I remember you told me. I don't remember.
Duendes?
I
think they're called duendes. They're like trolls, and they're the size of like the banqueta, or basically like
right here.
No, like on a sidewalk. You know the banqueta.
Oh, that's small.
That's small.
Oh, okay.
You know,
like 12-inch maybe.
I think they're called duendes. And he claims that he's like, for sure I seen them, and people buy them, and I guess that they would come to life, and he's a God-fearing man, believes in Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and to this day I know what I saw. and I'm not the only one.
Oh.
And it's like, I think they're called duendes, but they're these Mayan troll-looking things, and apparently they're like,
are they good?
Mischievous in a sense, or something like that. So I don't know. I've never experienced anything of that. I hope I never experience anything like that. But it is interesting to think about.
All those get very interesting. I haven't experienced. I think I've seen way too many movies, and it's kind of like, oh my God, no, I don't think I would handle right if I were to experience something like that.
Right.
So, please God.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us on our very all over the place episode with UFOs, inventions, and conspiracy theories. If you have something that you want to share on our comment section, please do so. Otherwise, we will catch you guys on the next episode.
Bye.